$7.5 million in expenses against only $3.1 million in donations. Those numbers do not just fail to add up, folks. They scream that something is catastrophically wrong at the heart of Meghan and Harry's Archewell charity, and insiders are now claiming that a potential investigation could shred their public image and tear apart their 7-year marriage. The bombshell report from Radar Online has sent shockwaves through both Hollywood and royal watching circles, exposing financial discrepancies so glaring that even the most devoted Sussex supporters are struggling to spin their way out of this one. For years, this couple has positioned themselves as humanitarian heroes, champions of the downtrodden, beacons of charitable virtue who left the stuffy royal institution to do good on their own terms. Now those lofty claims are being examined under a microscope, and what investigators might find could destroy everything they have worked to build. Let us be brutally honest here about what we are witnessing. When a charity spends more than double what it actually raises in donations, serious questions need to be answered. Where exactly is all that money going? Who is benefiting from these so-called philanthropic efforts? And why have Meghan and Harry's representatives gone into full damage control mode, frantically denying that any investigation is underway while insiders allege the complete opposite? One source put it bluntly to reporters, describing the situation as a ticking time bomb that could detonate at any moment. Another insider claimed that the couple is terrified of what a deep dive into their financial records might reveal. The math simply does not work, and anyone with basic arithmetic skills can see it. $7.5 million flowing out while only $3.1 million flows in means someone is covering a massive shortfall. Or worse, funds are being redirected in ways that demand explanation. Representatives for the couple have insisted that all charitable funds are properly accounted for and that Archewell has never been subject to investigation. But here is the thing about denials in the celebrity world. They often precede the very scandals they are trying to prevent. The louder the denial, the bigger the skeleton hiding in the closet. Sources close to the situation are not mincing words about the potential fallout. One insider revealed that if any link to wrongdoing or fraud is established, it would not just damage their reputation, it would obliterate the foundation of their entire post-royal identity. And they are absolutely right. Meghan and Harry staked everything on being the charitable royals, the ones who actually cared about making a difference while the rest of the family posed for portraits and cut ribbons. If it turns out their charity was mismanaged, or worse, that is not just embarrassing, that is existential. But the financial discrepancies are merely the first layer of this unfolding disaster, and the structural changes happening behind the scenes suggest someone is very nervous about what investigators might discover. The decision to rebrand from Archewell Foundation to Archewell Philanthropies was not some innocent marketing refresh, and anyone who believes otherwise is simply not paying attention. This strategic pivot to a fiscal sponsorship model represents a fundamental shift in how the organization operates, and the timing could not be more suspicious. When you are facing questions about where millions of dollars have gone, suddenly restructuring your entire charitable apparatus sends a very specific message. Sources familiar with nonprofit operations have described this move as classic damage limitation, creating distance between the couple and the financial scrutiny that traditional foundation status invites. Let me explain what fiscal sponsorship actually means for those unfamiliar with charity jargon. Instead of maintaining their own nonprofit status with all the reporting requirements and oversight that entails, Meghan and Harry's organization would essentially operate under the umbrella of another established charity. This arrangement provides a convenient buffer between their activities and the prying eyes of regulators. One nonprofit expert described it as hiding behind someone else's paperwork, though representatives would undoubtedly frame it as strategic efficiency. The $4 million that went unreported in their 2022 tax returns has not been forgotten, despite the couple's best efforts to move past it. That revelation sparked the initial wave of concerns about Archewell's financial practices, and it established a troubling pattern that this latest scandal only reinforces. When you fail to report $4 million one year and then show a massive gap between expenses and donations the next, people start connecting dots. And the picture those dots are forming is deeply unflattering to the Sussex brand. This charitable crisis does not exist in a vacuum. It arrives hot on the heels of the Sentabile bullying allegations against Harry, which saw multiple former staff members accuse the prince of creating a toxic work environment at the African children's charity he co-founded with Prince Siaiso of Lesotho. The Charity Commission examined those complaints, but noted that bullying allegations would require separate investigation outside their scope. In other words, the regulatory bodies are already circling, already asking questions, already lifting rocks to see what crawls out underneath. The Sussexes cannot afford another scandal right now, yet here we are. Insiders say the couple believed the Archewell rebrand would quietly reset the narrative, allowing them to continue their philanthropic work without the baggage of past controversies. Allow me to translate that from PR speak to plain English. They thought they could change the name on the door and everyone would forget about the missing millions. They thought wrong. Royal watchers and charity regulators alike have long memories, and the internet never forgets. Every financial discrepancy, every staff departure, Every suspicious restructuring is being documented, analyzed, and preserved for future reference. But the financial restructuring is just one symptom of a much deeper organizational collapse. And the mass exodus of staff tells a story that no rebrand can possibly disguise. Over 25 staffers have now deserted Meghan and Harry's operation, including top executives at Archewell itself, and the hemorrhaging shows absolutely no sign of stopping. This is not normal turnover. This is not people leaving for better opportunities or pursuing passion projects. This is a stampede for the exits by professionals who have seen enough and want no part of whatever is coming next. Sources claim that Meghan has been having what they describe as meltdowns over the departures, watching helplessly as the people who were supposed to build her empire choose instead to run as far away as possible. The pattern here is impossible to ignore, and it connects directly to allegations that have followed Meghan since her palace days. Multiple former royal staff members came forward with bullying claims during the couple's time as working royals, accusations that were supposedly being investigated before Meghan and Harry fled to California. Now the same pattern is repeating at Archewell, with executive after executive choosing to walk away rather than continue working for the Duchess. One insider put it bluntly, saying there is a common denominator in all these departures, and everyone in the industry knows exactly what it is. Let us talk specifics because the names matter. James Holt, who served as executive director and was featured prominently in their Netflix documentary, has announced his departure after years of loyal service. This man moved his entire family from the United Kingdom to Los Angeles to help build the Sussex brand. He was with them through every controversy, every failed venture, every public relations disaster. For him to walk away now speaks volumes about what is happening inside that Montecito operation. Meredith Maines, their head of public relations, lasted a mere 7 months before fleeing. 7 months. Let that sink in for a moment. The departure of so many experienced professionals does not just create a leadership vacuum, it fundamentally threatens the very existence of their charitable operations. You cannot run a legitimate philanthropic organization with 1 or 2 remaining employees. You cannot maintain proper financial controls and oversight when everyone with institutional knowledge has abandoned ship. You cannot credibly claim to be making a difference in the world when your own staff cannot tolerate working for you long enough to make anything happen. Sources say Archewell is now operating as a skeleton crew, and even that might be generous. One former employee reportedly described the work environment as chaotic and demoralizing, with constantly shifting priorities and unrealistic expectations. Another claimed that staff were expected to be available around the clock while receiving little appreciation or job security in return. The picture emerging from these accounts is of an organization that demands absolute loyalty while offering nothing but instability and criticism in return, and people wonder why nobody wants to stay. But the staff crisis extends beyond Archewell itself, and questions are now swirling about whether Meghan's most important Hollywood relationship has quietly crumbled as well. Has William Morris Endeavor quietly dropped Meghan Markle from their roster? That is the question burning through Hollywood circles right now. And the suspicious timing of recent announcements has everyone speculating about what really happened behind closed doors. When Meghan signed with WME back in 2023, it was heralded as her triumphant arrival in the entertainment industry. The agency's co-chairman Ari Emanuel personally championed her signing, and industry observers predicted a wave of major projects and lucrative deals. Instead, we have seen a string of failures, a cooking show that drew mockery, and now reports that Meghan has returned to Sunshine Sachs for public relations representation alongside Harry. Allow me to translate what being represented by 2 agencies typically means in Hollywood. It means one of those relationships is not working. Major talent agencies like WME handle comprehensive representation, including public relations strategy and image management. Bringing Sunshine Sachs back into the fold suggests that someone somewhere has lost confidence in the existing arrangement. Sources close to the situation have remained tight-lipped about the exact nature of Meghan's relationship with WME, but the silence itself speaks volumes. When things are going well, agencies cannot wait to trumpet their clients' successes. The timing here is particularly damning. Just as questions mount about Archewell's finances and staff flee in record numbers, Meghan appears to be restructuring her entire professional support system. One industry insider described it as rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, a colorful metaphor that captures the futility of these moves against the backdrop of mounting scandals. Another source suggested that WME may have grown tired of the constant controversies and diminishing returns that come with representing the Duchess. Let us be brutally honest about Meghan's Hollywood track record, because it provides crucial context for understanding why agencies might be distancing themselves. The Spotify deal collapsed spectacularly after producing minimal content. The Netflix arrangement has yielded underwhelming results despite enormous investment. The cooking show received lukewarm reviews at best and outright derision at worst. Industry executives are business people first and foremost, and the numbers simply are not there to justify continued investment in brand Markle. One producer reportedly said that working with Meghan is more trouble than it is worth, adding that the drama outweighs any potential profit. What does this mean for her Hollywood ambitions going forward? Without strong agency representation, securing major projects becomes exponentially more difficult. Studios and networks look to agencies for signals about talent viability, and any hint of being dropped or downgraded sends a clear message. Meghan reportedly still dreams of becoming a major entertainment mogul, producing content that influences culture and generates substantial income. But dreams require infrastructure, and her infrastructure appears to be crumbling faster than she can rebuild it. Sources say the professional setbacks have created tension not just in boardrooms, but in the Sussex household itself, and the charity scandal may be pushing their marriage toward a breaking point. Insiders claim the Archewell investigation fears are wreaking havoc on Meghan and Harry's marriage, exposing fault lines that have been building since their fairy tale wedding captured the world's attention. This charity was supposed to be their crown jewel, the centerpiece of their post-royal identity, the proof that they could not only survive outside the palace but thrive beyond it. Instead, it has become an albatross around their necks, dragging them deeper into controversy with each passing news cycle. One source close to the couple described the atmosphere in Montecito as toxic, with constant arguments about who is to blame and what to do next. The pressure on their relationship right now is almost impossible to overstate. Everything they have built together, their entire brand and identity, rests on the foundation of being charitable humanitarians who left the royal family to do good in the world. If that foundation crumbles under the weight of financial scandals and potential fraud investigations, what exactly do they have left? One insider put it starkly, saying their marriage was built on shared purpose, and if that purpose turns out to be a lie, there is nothing holding them together anymore. Harry in particular appears to be struggling with the implications of these revelations. This is a man who left his family, his country, his birthright, and his inheritance to build a new life with Meghan in California. He sacrificed relationships with his father and brother, endured worldwide criticism, and burned bridges that can never be rebuilt. And for what? So that his charity could face investigation while his staff flee, and his wife's Hollywood dreams collapse. Sources say the prince has been questioning everything lately, wondering whether the choices he made were worth the price he paid. Let that sink in for a moment. 7 years of marriage, built on the promise of freedom and purpose, now potentially teetering because the very organization meant to define their legacy is mired in scandal. Romantic partnerships can survive many challenges, but fundamental questions about integrity and honesty strike at the core of any relationship. If Meghan knew about financial issues and did not tell Harry, or if Harry signed off on decisions without understanding the implications, those are the kinds of revelations that shatter trust. One relationship expert consulted by media outlets described the situation as a perfect storm of external pressure and internal doubt. They noted that couples who define themselves by shared public missions often struggle when that mission comes under attack because criticism of the work feels like criticism of the relationship itself. Meghan and Harry cannot separate their marriage from their brand, and that intertwining may prove to be their undoing. Every negative headline about Archewell is a negative headline about their partnership. Sources say Harry has been reaching out to old friends and family members lately, perhaps seeking counsel or perhaps simply looking for connection outside the increasingly isolated Sussex bubble. But any hopes he might have for reconciliation with his father face a devastating new obstacle. Sources say the Archewell scandal could permanently destroy Harry's chances of reconciliation with King Charles, slamming the door on any possibility of healing the rift that has defined the royal family for years. The charity controversy does not exist in a vacuum. It reflects directly on the monarchy by association, and Charles cannot afford to be seen embracing a son whose philanthropic organization faces questions about financial impropriety. The optics alone would be catastrophic for an institution already battered by years of Sussex-related drama. Consider the position this puts the king in. Charles has reportedly wanted to reconcile with Harry, to find some path forward that preserves family bonds, while protecting the crown's reputation. But how can he extend an olive branch when his son's charity is being scrutinized for spending double what it raises in donations? How can he welcome Harry back into the fold when headlines scream about missing millions and potential investigations? One palace insider described it as an impossible situation, noting that Charles loves his son, but loves the monarchy more. Harry's reputation was already severely damaged before this latest scandal broke. The Centibale bullying accusations painted him as a difficult employer who created toxic work environments, a far cry from the compassionate prince image he cultivated for decades. The memoir spare alienated family members and revealed private conversations that should have remained confidential. The Netflix documentary portrayed the royal family in the most unflattering terms possible. Each of these self-inflicted wounds made reconciliation harder, and the Archewell financial questions might make it impossible. The contrast with Prince William's charitable work could not be starker or more damaging to Harry's position. While the Prince of Wales conducts his philanthropic efforts through established transparent channels with impeccable oversight, Harry's organization faces questions about basic financial accountability. Palace observers note that this comparison will not be lost on the public or on Charles himself. One commentator suggested that William has become the son Charles can be proud of, while Harry has become the son Charles has to explain. Let us be brutally honest about what this means for Harry's future relationship with his father. The window for reconciliation was already narrow, and the Archewell scandal may have slammed it shut entirely. Charles has limited time and energy to devote to family drama, particularly given his health challenges and the demands of the crown. Every moment spent dealing with Harry's latest controversy is a moment not spent on royal duties or enjoying his remaining years with the family members who actually support the institution. Sources say the king is exhausted by the constant Sussex chaos. But while Harry contemplates the family relationships he may have permanently destroyed, Meghan appears to be planning ambitious expansions that seem completely detached from the reality of their current situation. Despite everything crashing down around her, Meghan believes she can dominate the United Kingdom jam market. Yes, you read that correctly. According to reports, the Duchess is stockpiling product for a British expansion of her As Ever lifestyle brand, apparently convinced that the nation that rejected her most thoroughly will embrace her overpriced preserves. The delusion here is truly breathtaking, and it perfectly encapsulates everything wrong with how Meghan assesses her own popularity and appeal. One retail analyst laughed when asked about the viability of such a venture, saying it would be the fastest failure in British retail history. Let us examine the numbers that make this plan so absurd. Meghan's approval ratings in the United Kingdom hover somewhere around 20% favorable, meaning roughly 80% of the British public either dislikes her or feels negatively about her presence in their national conversation. Those are not the demographics of a successful product launch. Those are the demographics of a boycott waiting to happen. British consumers have access to countless jam options from beloved local producers, established brands, and premium artisan makers. Why on earth would they choose to purchase from a woman who has spent years publicly criticizing their royal family and their country? The pattern of overestimating her appeal has defined Meghan's post-royal career and explains many of her professional disappointments. She genuinely seems to believe that her fame translates into universal affection, that people who recognize her name are eager to consume her content and purchase her products. But recognition and admiration are very different things, and Meghan has far more of the former than the latter. The Spotify podcasts failed not because people did not know who she was, but because they did not care what she had to say. The Netflix shows underperform not from lack of awareness, but from lack of interest. Sources close to her business operations describe an atmosphere of yes people and enablers, where realistic market assessments are dismissed as negativity and genuine concerns are treated as disloyalty. One former associate reportedly said Meghan only wants to hear good news, adding that anyone who tells her the truth gets pushed out. This creates an echo chamber where terrible ideas get greenlit because nobody wants to be the person who bursts the bubble. A UK jam expansion would be funny if it were not such a perfect illustration of how disconnected Meghan has become from reality. The As Ever brand launch was already controversial, with critics pointing out the stratospheric prices for products marketed with a lifestyle most consumers could never afford. The jam costs considerably more than comparable products from established brands, and the overall aesthetic feels aspirational in a way that alienates rather than attracts middle-market consumers. Adding British consumers to this already struggling venture seems less like business strategy and more like a woman determined to prove something to the people she believes wronged her. But dreams of UK retail domination may soon take a backseat to far more serious concerns, because the real question is whether investigators will soon be knocking on their door. What happens when the IRS or charity regulators start digging deeper into Archewell's books? That is the question keeping Meghan and Harry's legal team up at night, and the potential answers range from embarrassing to genuinely devastating. Financial discrepancies of the magnitude being reported do not simply resolve themselves with a press release and a carefully worded denial. They invite scrutiny from agencies with subpoena power and forensic accountants who specialize in following money trails wherever they lead. Let us break down the specific red flags that have regulators and observers concerned. $7.5 million in expenses against $3.1 million in donations creates a gap of $4.4 million that needs explanation. Where did that additional money come from? How was it spent? Who made the decisions about allocation, and were proper procedures followed? These are not rhetorical questions. They are exactly what investigators will want answered, and the answers will either exonerate or implicate the people responsible for Archewell's operations. The Charity Commission's handling of the Centibale investigation provides an interesting precedent for understanding how these inquiries unfold. When When examining the bullying allegations against Harry, the commission noted that workplace behavior complaints fall outside their regulatory scope and would require separate investigation. This means that even when regulators look into Sussex charitable operations, significant concerns can remain unaddressed because they do not fit neatly into existing oversight frameworks. One legal expert described it as regulatory gaps you could drive a truck through. A formal investigation would carry consequences far beyond the immediate legal implications. Foundations and major donors conduct due diligence before partnering with charitable organizations, and even the hint of regulatory scrutiny sends them running in the opposite direction. Corporate sponsors who might have considered associating their brands with Archewell will want nothing to do with an organization under investigation. The reputational damage begins long before any findings are released and often proves impossible to undo regardless of the outcome. Sources say the couple is genuinely frightened about what deeper examination might reveal, and they are right to be concerned. Financial investigations have a way of uncovering things that organizations would prefer to keep hidden, from questionable expense classifications to potential conflicts of interest to outright misrepresentation. One forensic accountant noted that charity investigations rarely find nothing, adding that there is always something when you look hard enough. The only question is whether what they find rises to the level of actionable wrongdoing. The couple's representatives continue to insist that no investigation exists and that all funds have been properly managed, but the evidence and insider claims suggest a very different reality. The couple's team insists all funds were properly accounted for, a carefully worded denial that manages to say everything and nothing at the same time. Notice the language here. Properly accounted for does not mean properly spent. It does not mean ethically allocated or efficiently deployed or aligned with charitable mission. It means the paperwork exists. It means someone wrote numbers down somewhere. It means that if regulators come knocking, there will be something to show them. Whether what they see will satisfy serious scrutiny is an entirely different question. The suspicious timing of the rebrand to Archewell Philanthropies cannot be overlooked in this context. When organizations facing financial questions suddenly restructure their operations and change their names, it rarely signals confidence in their position. It signals preparation for difficult conversations. It signals an attempt to create separation between past practices and future operations. One nonprofit governance expert described it as putting distance between yourself and the bodies, a grim metaphor that captures the defensive nature of these moves. The fiscal sponsorship model that Archewell is reportedly transitioning toward offers several advantages for an organization seeking to reduce scrutiny. Rather than maintaining independent nonprofit status with all its reporting requirements and regulatory oversight, the organization operates under another charity's umbrella. This arrangement can provide legitimate benefits for small organizations lacking administrative capacity, but it also reduces transparency and makes it harder for outside observers to track how funds flow through the system. Critics argue this is precisely the point. Their public relations strategy of blanket denial has failed to quell growing concerns among royal watchers, media analysts, and charitable oversight organizations. The problem with flat denials is that they provide no information, offer no explanation, and invite skepticism rather than resolution. If the financial discrepancies have innocent explanations, why not provide them? If the expense levels reflect legitimate charitable work, why not detail what that work accomplished? The silence on specifics while loudly proclaiming innocence is itself a kind of answer, and it is not a reassuring one. Sources say the couple genuinely believed that announcing the restructuring and having representatives issue denials would make the story go away. They reportedly did not anticipate that media organizations would continue digging, that insiders would continue talking, and that the public would continue asking uncomfortable questions. One crisis communications expert described their approach as amateur hour, noting that experienced public relations professionals know that denials without explanations only fuel speculation. But then again, experienced professionals keep leaving the Sussex operation. So where does this leave the Sussex brand going forward? And can they possibly recover from the avalanche of scandals now burying their carefully constructed image? The mounting problems facing Meghan and Harry read like a catastrophe checklist that no amount of public relations magic can fix. Financial discrepancies that demand explanation, a staff exodus that speaks volumes about internal dysfunction, a marriage straining under the weight of collapsing ambitions, family reconciliation hopes dashed against the rocks of fresh controversy. Each of these would be challenging on its own. Together, they represent an existential threat to everything the Sussexes have tried to build since walking away from royal life. Their humanitarian mission, once positioned as their greatest asset, and the justification for their dramatic departure from the monarchy, has become their greatest liability. The couple staked their entire identity on being the compassionate royals who actually cared, who put action behind their words, who would show the world what philanthropy should look like. Now that very foundation faces questions about financial propriety and potential fraud. The irony is absolutely staggering, and it is not lost on the critics who warned from the beginning that something about the Sussex project did not add up. Patience may be a virtue, and as one commentator wisely observed, the truth has a way of surfacing no matter how deeply people try to bury it. For years, supporters dismissed concerns about Meghan and Harry as jealousy, racism, or monarchist bias. For years, legitimate questions about their charitable operations, their staff turnover, and their business practices were waved away as tabloid attacks. Now those questions are being asked by regulators, investigators, and the couple's own former employees. The chickens, as they say, are coming home to roost. What happens next remains uncertain, but the trajectory is undeniably downward. Without successful commercial ventures, the couple's income streams will continue to diminish. Without functioning charitable operations, their claim to humanitarian leadership becomes hollow. Without staff willing to implement their vision, even good ideas cannot become reality. Without royal connections, Hollywood access, or public goodwill, what exactly do Meghan and Harry have to offer? The answer increasingly appears to be nothing but drama and scandal. The question now is whether formal investigation will follow the informal scrutiny that has already exposed so much. Will the IRS take interest in an organization spending millions more than it raises? Will state charity regulators demand explanations for the financial discrepancies? Will the pattern of behavior that has driven away staff and damaged partnerships finally face official examination? These questions hang over Montecito like storm clouds, and no amount of denial from Sussex representatives will make them disappear. Do you think Archewell should face a full investigation, or are these concerns overblown? Drop your thoughts below. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned. The next video is waiting, and you will not believe what is coming next.